Hello, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Anna Laurel. Here at CBS 8, we're working for you, getting to the bottom of problems you've asked about, and we're looking for solutions. We start with scams in the digital age. Cyber attacks have gone from a distant possibility to an unavoidable certainty. CBS 8's Brian White is working for you on how to protect your identity in the midst of the growing threat from AI deepfakes.
In a world where video and audio can be manipulated with ease, it can be hard to know what's real and what's not.
Really, what the threat actor is doing is leveraging technology to convince you that they're someone that they're not.
I reached out to Rachel Bush. She's vice president of cybersecurity risk at Nationwide. She pointed me to a survey of theirs that shows most consumers are highly concerned with the misuse of AI.
They can use that to craft messages that might allow the person to think that someone that they love is truly at risk and in need of help, or is maybe asking for money.
Mom, these bad men have me. Help me, help me, help me. She begged and pleaded as the phone was taken from her.
This mom testified before an Arizona Senate Judiciary Committee, recalling the terrifying ordeal when scammers manipulated her daughter's voice.
A threatening and vulgar man took the call over. Listen here, I have your daughter.
The FBI has issued warnings about AI and how it can be used by scammers to craft highly convincing voice or video messages, oftentimes resulting in financial losses, reputational damage, and compromise of sensitive data.
It's really difficult to discern what you can trust and what you can't. And so my advice is to operate with a healthy degree of skepticism.
I asked her how to defend against these kinds of tactics. She recommends having a safe word with family and friends for validation if a phone call from one of them seems suspicious. And she says we have to be vigilant with texts and emails too, because AI can mimic the writing style and tone of someone you know. So be careful when you're asked to click on links or download files.
Fraudsters will take advantage of that data to do things like take over a bank account, or potentially to gather enough information that might even allow them to open up fraudulent loans or fraudulent credit cards.
For more cybersecurity resources, head to CBS8.com and go to the online version of this story. Working for you, Brian White, CBS 8.
The San Diego City Council is calling on the federal government to declare the cross-border sewage crisis a national emergency. This comes amid concerns about the health risks from airborne toxic chemicals. CBS 8's Jasmine Ramirez is working for you and shows us how local leaders are trying to take a new approach to the sewage crisis.
Today we sat down with Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer, who is hoping the EPA will send researchers down to the South Bay to test for toxins that might be impacting people's health.
Good afternoon. And
local leaders are now urging the federal government to help and address the cross-border sewage crisis.
What we are facing in the Tijuana River Valley is one of the biggest environmental battles faced not just by this region, but by our entire country.
Today, the council unanimously approved Councilmember Vivian Moreno's resolution calling on the federal government to declare it a national emergency.
We have waited 31 years for the federal government to take decisive action.
Tara Lawson-Remer with the County Board of Supervisors wants the EPA to find out what contaminants might be in the Tijuana River Valley and estuary. The pollution is not only highly toxic in the water, air, and soil, but also poses risks to people's health. She says stopping the sewage and fixing the broken plants is an important first step. Yesterday, crews started work on repairing and expanding the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant.
We know that a lot of the sewage that's been running through the Tijuana River Valley is from manufacturing plants, it's from heavy industry, and we think it deserves a careful look.
She says cleaning up the contaminants that have seeped into the ground for decades is needed. If the EPA finds hazardous levels of toxins, she says the area could become a Superfund. That's a site with hazardous waste posing risks to human and environmental health. A Superfund allows the EPA to create a plan to clean up the waste and opens doors for funding. Next week, the Board of Supervisors will vote whether to petition the EPA for a site inspection and start the process. Jasmine Ramirez, CBS 8.
Thanks, Jasmine. Meantime, the International Boundary and Water Commission officially broke ground on a project to fix and expand the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant. Dr. Maria Ellen Geiner, the commissioner of the IBWC, hosted the ceremony this week and announced a contract to refurbish the treatment plant's Junction Box 1. That essentially will improve the plant's performance by installing 2 new gates on an 8-foot wide pipe that carries wastewater from Mexico to the plant. That piece of infrastructure has been a problem at the plant for years. The condition of the roads in the city of San Diego is a common complaint among drivers. This week, San Diego leaders provided an update on repairs. Mayor Gloria announced that over 1,600 miles of road have been fixed since late 2020. That's about a quarter of our entire road network. Gloria says the city's plan prioritizes the most traveled roadways, but he also acknowledged that more work still needs to be done.
The quality of our roads is one of the most frustrating things that I experience as your mayor. I drive on these streets too, and I certainly hear the same frustration from so many San Diegans.
According to the city's most recent assessment, only about 1 in 5 San Diego roads are considered to be in good condition. The city's new pavement management team says $188 million needs to be invested into roads over the next 8 years. A big change is coming to the DMV for older drivers. Many will no longer be required to take a written test when renewing their license. CBS 8's Steve Price is working for you and explains the new rules.
The DMV has hit the brakes on a requirement forcing a written knowledge test for drivers who are renewing their license and are over the age of 70. So what do they think of this? They're giving it the green light.
My brain is full of this stuff.
Paula Liska spent 2 days cramming for the DMV's written test, then got here and learned she didn't have to take it.
Hallelujah.
Paula, at 96 years young, thinks she would have passed, but better safe than sorry.
Some of the questions are what we called in college Mickey Mouse. They switched the words just a little.
Paula directly referenced this question. What should you do when there's a school bus ahead that starts flashing yellow warning lights? Slow down and prepare to stop, stop immediately and remain stopped, or cautiously pass the school bus on the left. The correct answer is slow down and prepare to stop.
70 plus still have to come in for a vision test, a quick photo, but no more written test.
DMV spokeswoman Anita Gore says the move is expected to reduce the amount of foot traffic at DMV offices by about 50,000 people a month and should have no effect on driver safety.
Someone who's been driving for 15 years or 30 years, who's never gotten a ticket, never been in an accident, there's no reason for us to believe that they don't know the rules of the road.
Antonio Martinez gives the move 2 thumbs up.
Great. I tried a couple times and I just missed it by 2 or 3 stupid questions. And I know them. You know, I haven't had any driving tickets in 30 years, something like that.
Those 70 and over will still have to take a written test to renew their license if within 2 years of your license expiring, you've had 2 or more accidents, a DUI suspension, or a violation point count greater than 1. Also, written tests will be required for anyone getting a license for the first time in California, even if you have a license from another state.
I'm overqualified to drive. You want me to teach you how to drive?
Paula says she only drives during the day and short distances. In Claremont, Steve Price, CBS 8.
Don't you love Paula? We continue to follow the ongoing homelessness crisis in the county. This week, the city of Chula Vista officially decided to move forward with an ordinance that bans homeless encampments in the city. Starting at the end of the month, people will be banned from sitting, sleeping, lying, or storing personal property in certain public spaces. Chula Vista will now join other cities like San Diego, San Marcos, and Escondido, who've passed similar bans. And the city of San Diego is expanding its safe sleeping program to add more than 230 tents at 2 sites. Right now, current capacity for the program is just over 500 tents. City leaders voted to expand it to more than 750. They'll be added to the O lot at the edge of Balboa Park and 20th and B safe sleeping locations. Officials say the move will help offset the loss of 600 shelter beds by the end of the year. So will you vote to raise the sales tax in San Diego County? Coming up next, we dig into what Measure G would do if it gets enough votes and how money from similar measures was used after getting approval. Plus, you might notice something different with your next SDG&E bill. Oh, great. Why a credit is being applied to your balance. And don't forget, we want to look into issues affecting you and your community. Email us at workingforyou@cbs8.com. We'll be right back. Ballots for registered voters in San Diego are starting to show up in mailboxes. And one issue that's dividing opinions across the county, Measure G. If passed, it would raise the sales tax by half a cent to help pay for road repairs, carpool lanes, and mostly public transit. We already pay a half-cent tax for that, so this would be on top of that. I recently had an opportunity to speak with people from both sides of the debate.
We want public transit. We want less cars on the road. We want less smog in the air so that our kids have less asthma. That's why we support yes on Measure G. It'll reduce congestion for everybody, even if you don't use transit. And if you use transit, it will make it so much better.
I sat down with Manny Rodriguez with the City Heights community group that's part of Yes for Measure G, and Supervisor Jim Desmond, who used to be on the board of Sandag and says no to Measure G. Rodriguez and others argue improving public transit will benefit even those who don't use it.
Even if you will never step foot in a bus or never step foot in a train, if you can get 10 people on the highway into a bus, that's like 140 feet of gridlock removed just for you two.
Critics of Measure G are pushing back. They raise concerns over what they say is Sandag's long track record of abandoned projects and misuse of taxpayer dollars. San Diego County taxpayers already pay a half-cent sales tax for Sandag Road projects, and Desmond says the projects aren't done.
I wouldn't give another dime to Sandag because they don't keep their promises and they mismanage the money. They've got a history of mismanagement.
Critics say promised projects include widening the 5, the 8, the 15, the 805, the 52, 56, 67, and 78. Did it happen? Only a partial expansion is done on the 15. In fact, critics say 15 promised projects from the tax we pay right now are still unfinished.
Sandag, the entity who is going to be managing these dollars, has not kept their promise. It has mismanaged the funds in the past, is under FBI investigation right now for some of that mismanagement. So let's make them get their house in order first and keep the promises of the past before they come to us and ask for any more money.
Desmond also questions the focus on public transit.
People in Alpine and people Ramona, people Julian, people San Marcos and Oceanside and other places are paying for these things and not getting the benefit of the services or getting the road improvements they need.
Is Measure G the solution to San Diego's traffic and transportation troubles, or just another costly promise?
We can't keep living with the status quo, and Measure G gives us a new path forward.
You get to decide in November. In San Diego, this is Anna Laurel for CBS 8. Now, we did not hear from Sandag. That's the agency that will oversee the transportation projects. We asked them to join us for the discussion, but they declined. Sandag did draft a similar tax measure back in 2016, but because a government entity was behind it, the measure needed a 3/4 majority vote to pass, and it did not get that. So this time, union groups got the measure on the ballot. That means it's a citizens' initiative and only needs a simple majority to pass. And before you can cast your votes in the election, there are new state laws you should know about. The biggest change you'll see this election is how state referendums are worded on ballots. Instead of picking either yes or no, voters will choose between keep the law or overturn the law. The change is meant to help make things easier for voters to understand when making those decisions. Another new law requires all polling locations statewide to offer curbside voting. That means San Diego County has actually offered it for years, but it's new for everyone else.
Curbside voting is for an individual that, for whatever reason, can't enter the vote center, and we can bring the ballot marking device out to the car.
For a full list of polling centers, drop boxes, and information about voting, just head to CBS8.com and click on this story. Coming up next, more than a dozen new ADUs on a single family lot, how the current rules allowed this project to happen, and the top concern among neighbors. Plans are underway to add 17 ADUs behind a single-family home in Claremont. Neighbors say it's going to be a monstrosity, but the developer says NIMBYs should be more open-minded. CBS 8's Brian White spoke with neighbors and to the developer. He's working for you to find out if this project is following the rules.
17 units behind here. You got to be kidding me.
Neighbors on Almayo Avenue not happy about what's coming.
There's no parking here. We've got a nice, quiet cul-de-sac.
I checked. This half-acre single-family lot was sold for $1.4 million in October. The existing home will be remodeled and rented out, while 17 ADUs will be added to the backyard.
If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
Bob Brindell lives nearby. He showed me where they're already prepping and grading the dirt for construction.
This is at the end of a cul-de-sac. You know, there's no parking as it is. Where are these people going to park?
I found out the developer is SDRE. They have offices in Kearney Mesa, and I reached out.
Everybody admits and agrees we have a housing crisis. Nobody has a perfect solution.
Skylar Hoffman is an attorney representing SDRE. He grew up in Bay Park and Point Loma and says each unit will be a one-bedroom, typically 500 to 800 square feet, and he doesn't believe parking will be an issue.
Millennials and Gen Zers do not own cars in the typical fashion that we did 20 years ago. They're Ubering, they're taking public transportation, they're working from home.
Behind the existing home, they're adding 9 separate structures, most of them 2 stories, ADUs stacked on top of one another. I checked. They're able to do this using San Diego's ADU bonus program. They're allowed a bonus unit for every affordable one they build, and because there's a bus stop within a half mile, it's a transit priority area. That means no parking required and no real cap on the total number of ADUs, as long as they're building to code.
It's NIMBY, right? It's not in my backyard. And everybody's fine with affordable housing, right? As long as it's not next door to me.
And while SDRE is following all the rules, neighbors feel it just isn't right.
Single-family residents, when I moved here, that's all there were, single-family residences. And now they're putting these, or just dropping them in and not telling us and just forcing it through.
In Claremont, working for you, Brian White, CBS 8.
Working for your wallet, SDG&E customers are getting a little bit of help financially. Customers are getting a $78 credit on their bills this month. It comes from a California cap-and-trade program that requires polluters to pay for climate pollution. Not everyone will see the credit at the same time, but it should show up on your account automatically. Credits are distributed in April and October each year. This last April, the credit was about $59. Friar fans are spending a pretty penny when it comes to seeing the Padres in the playoffs. The National League Division Series against the Dodgers starts this weekend, and the cheapest ticket for Saturday's game costs about $100. It'll cost you more than $9,000 if you want to sit above the Dodger dugout. Now, if you're holding out for home games at Petco Park, tickets are sold out on Ticketmaster, but sites like SeatGeek show the cheapest seats around $300. It gets more expensive, though, as the series goes on. And that's going to do it for us. Remember, if there's something you'd like us to look into, email us at workingforyou@cbs8.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.